I have always drawn and painted since I was a little girl, and my closest friend in grade school, his name was Kathleen, and we would go over to her house, and in the afternoon we'd draw because her family didn't have a TV, and so we had to do something, so we would draw, and she was phenomenal. And so I'd go home and I'd practice and try to get as good as her. I never did. And then in college, I had to declare a major, and so I picked art just because it was the only thing I knew, the only thing I was really interested in. Can't do math, can't do science, had to be art. What else could it have been? I've always loved glass. I have a small paperweight collection. I just find it to be intriguing and mysterious. And I saw an ad for an informal class through UT, and I took that, and like 3 minutes later I knew that I was hooked and that I'd be doing this for a really, really long time. My day job influences my glasswork a lot, because my first problem to solve is, how do I divide the space? How do I make use of this area? And so design principles are pretty universal, and so a lot of the same rules and tricks that I use in design translate to glass in terms of how to use the space, what kind of colors to choose, how to make all of those things work. I wouldn't say that my glass influences my design work so much as the other way around. And my design work tends to be hard-edged and graphic and sharp, and so I think my glass is too. It's pretty graphic, it's pretty bold. I use a lot of black, and so it tends to be kind of punchy. I try to do my day job for the day and be done with it. And I mean, I work as hard as I have to. If deadlines are looming, then you got to do what you got to do. But I like to leave that alone and then come in here with something fresh and some time to think and reflect, and to not be real deadline driven. That's what I like to do, is to keep them separate disciplines, because I'm solving separate problems. And when I walk away from that, I try not to think real hard about it. You know who does that now is Paul Tarlow. And he's a good technician, and a lot of times, because I am new to this, I don't have a lot of technical background, and so I will come to him with an idea and say, can I execute on this? And can you help me? And what are the pitfalls in this process? Am I causing myself problems by trying to do this? And he's more than happy to talk to me about all of the bugaboos involved in just getting it safely out of the kiln, but he's also able to talk to me about the art part of it and why I do what I do. And that's important. I read a lot, and you find amazingly good stuff in the bookstore. Not stuff to read, but stuff to look at. Covers are a really good source for me of inspiration and interesting ways of telling a story, or providing a metaphor for a concept. I love bookstores. I take notes. I draw pictures. I love bookstores. I would say that in both graphic design and in glass, my problems, when I have problems, are usually because I kind of get stuck and I don't know where to go next. I know that something's not working. I know that it needs to be better, but I don't know what's wrong or how to fix it sometimes. And I've kind of developed some ways of dealing with that, and that tends to be walking away from it for a little while, maybe a day or half a day, coming back and then rearranging things. But getting stuck in my design work and getting stuck in glass is very similar. It doesn't feel very good. And it's hard to work out of it sometimes. If I can just let it rest for a little while, and usually I can let my glass sit for longer. Sometimes it takes weeks, and I wait for it to talk to me. In my design job, I usually don't have that kind of luxury of time. I might be able to give it a day or two to kind of settle and for some ideas just start coming. With my design, I can walk away from it for weeks and weeks at a time until it starts to talk to me. And when it starts to tell me what it wants to do, then I know that I'm usually going down a pretty good path. Does that make sense? I was doing some test tiles a couple of years ago with black iridized glass, and that's black glass that has a thin skin of metal over it that's metallic and it's shiny, and it fires to a nice high, not quite as bright as foil, but a high metal look. And my tests were flattening out and the metal was breaking up. And I was going, oh my gosh, my metal it's not stretching with the glass, it's breaking and it's creating cracks. And so I set that aside for a little while and started to think, maybe I can exploit that. Maybe I can make that work for me. Maybe I can factor it into my planning and design around it and get something that is maybe not entirely controllable, but something that I have an idea of what's going to happen, and maybe I can get that to work. And so I've got a whole series of black glass now with crackle irid that I think is very fun, and I never know what I'm going to get until I get it. I open up the kiln and I go, oh wow, that is so cool, or oh crap, what happened? And I think you have to be open to the happy accident. And I find that more in this than in my design work. You know, my happy accident, every once in a while I'll throw something on the page and say, oh, that looks good there. Or I wasn't planning on using that size, but that seems to work. And I try to stay open to serendipitous moments. You can't force them, and I'm really grateful for them when they come, because it's not very often. This is a direction that was new to me this year. I studied with a DC artist named Carrie Minnick at Paul's studio for a week, and she teaches a technique with powder, and you sift it on and you scrape through it and you fire it, and then you sift on more powder and scrape through it again and fire it. And so you're able to get these really beautiful painterly qualities. And what she has got me interested in is putting typography into glass, because she does calligraphy, and I'm not a calligrapher, but her letter forms just kind of got me going, that's something that I really need to do. Isn't that cool? It's such fun, and you do these different little paintings on clear layers, and then you stack them so that they are sitting one on top of another, on top of another. It's all on clear glass so that you can look through it and see all of these different layers and the colors working together. So this is something that I'm starting to do. I still love the old retro stuff, so this was one of the first pieces that I did after I got back from that workshop, working with the powders, working with the layers, and trying to get that old 1950s imagery that I love. And I call this Lies My Mother Told Me. And this is where my broken crackle took me. And it's black glass that has just been fused to black glass with the skin of the iridized metal on it. And that comes in several different colors, so you can get the silver, the rainbow, and the gold. And then I've sandblasted. Have I sandblasted on this? I guess not. Little dot of red, and that's a piece of dichroic glass, which is often used for jewelry. I've got a little series in the works right now that this started its life as a flat spiral, and I'm trying to turn spirals into tall vessels. And this is where Paul has been helping me out, figuring out how do I do this? How do I fire it? How do I keep it from breaking? And how do I manage the movement in the kiln while it's hot? So I'm hoping that in the next, I don't know, 6 or 12 months that I can start doing these larger and deeper. But this is the start of my testing phase. And I've fired this, I think, 7 times by now. It's pretty slow going. Isn't that crazy? I think it's going to be a good direction.